Here we go, loop-de-loo. Here we go, loop-de-lie. All right. Well, hello everybody. Hope you're all doing well. It's a good day here in Nashville, Middle Tennessee. Just kind of been excited about doing a live stream. It's been a while since I've done one by myself and could just answer questions, interact, just kind of have fun. So here we are. So CC says howdy Zach, and I say howdy back to you, CC. Yeah, let's see. Oh, well, I just got back from Las Vegas. So I went with my friend Austin, who has been on a live stream before, and he has his own wonderful channel that I recommend that you check out, Austin Skinner. And again, a lot of you know this, but I've known Austin since he was like a wee child. And so it was really fun here's this guy that I've known his whole life, and he's known me a lot of my life. We've known each other for, golly, going on, 30 plus years. So it's been a lot of fun to get to go and play a bunch of shows with him, go play at a casino and have fun. So here, J Tall Guitars, hello. CC is Chad. Huh, all right, hello Chad. Grover Carter, love your channel. Thank you, Grover. Jason Cornelius from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and a friend, and someone that I've probably known I think I've known Jason for probably about 20 years. I think I met him maybe at Billy Bob's. I can't remember which bar, kind of big dance hall there in Texas that I met Jason at. Maybe he'll, Jason, chime in and tell me where we met. Victor says, aloha. Can't wait to hear about the new Brown Box, Garrett says. Scott Howard says, you're the best. Thank you. Rick Perdue says, sup, brother. Zane Agnew. Oh, I like that name. So stoked to see the 2020, it's actually the 2023 Brown Box. Yes, you corrected yourself. Perfect. Yeah. So, yeah, as I was just saying, I'm kind of recovered from my trip to Las Vegas. Had a lot of fun there. Did you write? It doesn't take much for me to get distracted. Hi from Virginia by DB Lewis. Hello. Metal Reaper says hi Zach. Corey Spence, did you ride the mechanical bull at Billy Bob's? No, I never have ridden a mechanical bull. I've just never been that game. And Jason confirms, yes, it was Billy Bob's. I think calling you a friend is such an honor. Well, you're a good guy, and we have been friends. Let's see. Belinda, hi Zach. Michael Guys, hi Zach. Any experience with third power amps? Love the channel. Appreciate all you do. My experience with third power amps go back many years in the earliest incarnation of the company. So when they had like the Dreamweaver and the British Dream and American Dream and stuff like that. I don't really know, but a lot of players here in town like the Woolly Coats and their little Princeton-sized amps that have either like Fox type electronics or whatever. But and they make a good Masturtion copy variation of it. Let's see, Monty, hello. Let's see, Paigey JJJ, hi from Toronto. Hello from the wonderful north. I miss Toronto. I need to go back up there soon. Hello from Mandan, North Dakota. Wow. Hello from Kirkland Lake. What was your setup for the recent Vegas gig? I actually cover that in next week's episode, but I'll just tell y'all real quick here. I used a grab and go pedal board that's kind of that I featured in a past episode, and I actually used a Boss Katana amplifier. And the reason I did was because of you guys. You guys had recommended it because in the PV episode, I'm looking at my PV amp over here. Y'all had talked about how the kind of the current iteration of a PV amp, if you're taking in today's day would be the Boss Katana, and I used it and had good luck with it. Let's see. Post some clips from your Vegas trip. I will. That's next week's episode. So next week's episode is all about Vegas, and I think I put one playing clip in there, but I filmed it in Vegas, and so part of it's me in the green room, and part of it's me in my hotel room. I actually was able to get some good lighting in the hotel room. It was nice. Brad Bailey says, "Hi Zach, how does the Blonde Tonemaster Deluxe reverb handle pedals?" It does great. I love that amp. I have no problem, gigging with that amp. It's wonderful. Yeah, there's nothing not to like about the blonde one. And the black one is good too, the black face one. But I prefer the blonde one because of the speaker and the different modeling. It's the modeling of the normal channel. What basically means it doesn't have the bright cap. Let's see. Good evening from Berlin. Well, thank you for. Let's see. I guess there you'd be. Yeah, it'd be late. Getting to be late at night with Mark P. And Musis 433 says, "Love the Book Nook segment." That has been a lot of fun, and every time I skip it, people say, "Where, why didn't you do the Book Nook?" So don't worry, I'll be doing it. I haven't planned on doing one for the live stream, but I will continue to do that. Viva Las Vegas, very good. All right, so let's dive in and let's talk about the new iteration of the Brown Box. So of course last year, I did an episode on the Brown Box, and y'all responded, and of course they had like a discount code, and a lot of y'all were able to get one. And they made for 2023, they've made a small change to the Brown Box. It has nothing to do with the guts inside. What they did was they changed the aesthetics of it. They changed the markings on here. And so I'm gonna pull this. Oh, see, this is the. All right. Got to get my big hand. This is where big hands come in handy. So if you look here in the old one, it had numbers, with the knobs, and they found that it was just kind of confusing, and they wanted to simplify things. So they just kind of created this, new graphic, and I'll go in a little tighter, where, it just kind of shows where it's getting more voltage reduction as you turn it up. And here again is the old one with the percentages. The problem is that the percentages would change depending on how much wall voltage you were coming in with the reduction. It could be more or less. So part of it was somewhat inaccurate, and they wanted to simplify things based on the responses they would get from customers, the questions and such. So I think this is a wonderful improvement. So this is just a primer on how to use the guy. So I'm gonna plug it in. So we have all right, so here we go. So right now, everything is, it's bypassed, everything's at minimum, nothing is active right now. What you're seeing is the wall voltage here in Franklin, Tennessee, which is just south of Nashville, where I live. And you can see that we have 124 volts coming out of the wall. So the first thing you do when you're using the box is, of course, you'd plug your amp in here into one of the two outlets. Then you would start off with the bottom switch, because right now it's in bypass. So you turn that, and of course, now you have 119. Well, I want to have more than that, because through trial and error, and actually working with my tech, Bill Keck, who works at True Tone, who's been working on my 59 Harvard and my 1965 Deluxe Reverb, I found kind of what the ideal voltages are as far as what the tubes and the circuit wants to see. And so when I use the Harvard, it really is at its optimal voltage when it's got 113. Okay, so right now I'm at 119. So I'm going to go down another step. okay? That didn't take me down very much. So I'm going to go again. Okay, now I'm down to 115, okay? This is where I might have to use this top button too to do some more fine tuning. So now we do it again. Now we're down to 113, okay? So that's great. Now I could use this top one and actually get it down even further. So there I was able to take it down to 111, which is what I might want on like my Vox amp. But I found that my black-faced Deluxe reverb really, you know, is at its best at 117. So here to get 117, I'm going to come back, and that's 115. Okay. Well, now I'm at 118. Well, now I want to get it down to 117. So there it is. So between the two, and you start with this one. You know, this bottom one is where you start things off, because I mean, when it's on bypass, it's not doing anything. You know, this knob doesn't do anything. But in between the two knobs, you can dial in exactly what voltage you want. And another kind of misnomer about this device is that you just kind of have these settings, like a pedal, where you have these settings that you like and you just go wherever and have it set like this. Well, it doesn't work that way, because you have to look at the readout and see what your voltage is, you know, because the voltage here at my home is 123. Well, downtown Nashville, it's 125. So, you know, I would need to set the knobs differently. So I can't just have like, these are my settings, like on a pedal. So just another kind of comparison. There's also a little bit different shade of brown. And also the powder coating is slightly different. It's nicer on the new one. And I was told that this housing, you know, the powder coating was done in China, and this is actually being done here in the States. And I'm not being in any way pro-USA or pro-China or anti. I just go with whatever I like better. And it's nice to be able to say that the Made in the USA housing is, you know, was done, and the powder coating, you know, was done here in the U.S. And these are made right here in Nashville. So that's another thing. So they wire these things up, and they do the, you know, they do the painting on them and everything in here in Nashville. And the owners, Cassandra and Clark, are really kind folk. And just to pass on a little savings to y'all, they have a code that we were using last year, and it's still active. So you can use Ask Zach, no space, just ASKZAC for $20 off. So I'll put that down in the description afterwards too. So if any of y'all were thinking about picking one up. All right, let's get back to saying hello. And so we have good evening from Italy, 9 p.m. there. Wonderful. Hello from Krenar. DB Lewis says, what's your preferred voltage? I kind of said it earlier, but I like 113 for the Harvard, and I like 117 for the Deluxe, for my Deluxe reverb. Can you do more with NYC players? Yuma Kraken, Steve Kahn, Elliot Randall, Hiram Bullock, and many others. Yes, that's fodder for future episodes. So it's unfortunate that two of the guys that you mentioned have already passed away. I'm talking about Hugh McCracken and Hiram Bullock are no longer with us, but I should definitely cover those guys. Thank you to Plexico. Love the brown box and you. These boxes are so important for older tube amps. Cough up the loot. I love Plexico. He has a good attitude. I like him. Sean McGee says, afternoon all. Thank you, Plexico. Will Barton says, I like the new aesthetics. I've always found the percentages to be a bit arbitrary between different old amps, but I've written down what each of my amps likes to see voltage-wise and hit that. Perfect. Oh, would the brown box be useful for Dr. Z amps? Okay. Yes. It does not need as much because Dr. Z amps were made to operate on 120. However, you still have higher voltages coming out of the wall. So, when you have an amp that wants to see 120 and it gets 125, it's not horrible for the amp, but it would be better to reduce the voltage. It just doesn't need as much reduction as a vintage amp. And also you get the consistency. So that way, if you have a Brown Box with a Dr. Z amp, you can always have the same voltage, and that's going to help the amp sound more consistent from night to night, even though the rooms and everything else are different. Let's see. Hey Zach, hope you're doing well. Thoughts on Gibson amps? Any models you've liked in particular? Well, I really like the mid to late 50s amps, which are kind of generally regarded as a really good amps that are still kind of, they're not the sleepers they were 10 years ago, but those are really, really cool amps, and they are just as good as a lot of the Fender Tweeds, and some of them might be a touch better, but by the early 60s, they weren't quite as wonderful, but they're still really good. Let's see. If I was going to do a, where is the book? Where is it? Okay, I have a book on Gibson amps, and if I could get my hands on it, where did it go? Is it behind here? No. Where is it? Okay, I don't want to stop the whole show to, while I turn around and look behind me, but I have a wonderful book by Wally Marks on Gibson amps, and I really highly recommend it. Let's see. Yeah, I would love to do something on the Jeff Beck Esquire era. Yeah, that'd be another thing. It was really sad and sudden that we lost Jeff Beck. It wasn't like some prolonged illness or anything. It was something that took him very quickly. And of course, I loved the Yardbirds era, and I loved just about everything he did. Let's see. Parts casters, bodies. MJT is great. Yeah. Any parts I should avoid? No, not that I know of. You just, hopefully you get something with like a return policy. So if it's just not good, you can return it. Have you tried RC boosters? Yeah, I had the regular white 4-knob RC booster for a long time, and I just kind of got tired of it. It wasn't anything wrong with it. I thought it was a really cool pedal. And so I put on Instagram that I was wanting to sell it, and Guthrie Trapp bought it from me right away. He messaged me and he said, "I'll take it." I was like, okay. So I threw it in the mail. So, hi from North Carolina. Would you suggest this for a Fender Rivera Deluxe 2, which has solid state transducer? Let's see. Do you mean a solid state rectifier? Again, the Brown Box is good for helping with consistency on newer amps, because again, so many times the voltage coming out of the wall can be all over the place. I played a venue in Oklahoma that it was over 126, and it made my poor little Vox AC10 sound terrible, even though I had it was not a Brown Box. It was just a box that would drop things about 5 volts, and it just wasn't enough. So I think it is. And there's rumors of Brown Box, of AmpRX making a simpler unit that's designed more for a current production amp, so it wouldn't offer as much attenuation of voltage or as much voltage drop, but it would be kind of perfect for newer amps and probably be a little bit less expensive. Good evening from Belgium. I was wondering if there will be a True Tone Lounge with Daniel Donato. Daniel's a great guy and great player. In fact, I got my Harvard from him. We just, things, have not, worked out with that yet. So I guess we need to talk about it more. I've actually have a bunch of lounge guests that we've been kind of reworking the schedule with. So that's something I need to get on. So yeah, very worthy guy. Let's see, I'm trying not to skip any of these questions. Let's see. Colin Bradley says, hi from Niagara on the Lakes, enjoying the Brown Box discussion. Hope all is well. It is. Let's see. Go with Glendale hardware. It's the best. Glendale hardware is great. I also like just the run-of-the-mill as far as the bridge, the bent metal bridge on a vintage Telecaster. The ones that Fender sell are great, and they're like $30. And then you can get Glendale saddles and save yourself a little bit of money. Colin Farnsworth says, yes, rectifier. So yes, I answered that. Jason Cornelius, very kind. Thank you for doing this and sharing your knowledge. I'm considering getting a Ron Ellis pickup for my Danocaster Blackguard based on your suggestions. Which one do you like best? I really like it. I think it just depends on if you want more of the steel guitar thing or if you want more of the Roy Buchanan thing. If you want more of the Roy Buchanan thing, I'd go with his 50B. If you want more of the steel guitar thing, then I'd go with the 52T. The broadcaster one is going to be a little gainier. So it just depends on whether you want it to be a little dirtier, or gainier, if you want it to be, And again, there's not like there's worlds difference between the two pickups. It's just they kind of lean one way and the other leans the other. So really, you can't go wrong with either one. If you're going to play cleaner, I'd go with the 52T. Let's see. Any value in using identical pedals, one for overdrive, the other for boost? I haven't really done that before. And mainly because I kind of use a small pedal board, so I usually use 5 pedals tops, plus a tuner. So I've never really had a lot of duplication on there. Though I did use a small board that had 2 tube screamers back in the 90s, and I used one that was a heavier drive and one was a less drive, but I still didn't really use one as a boost. But if you have one that cleans up well, like a Timmy or something like that, yeah, you could absolutely use 2 of them. All right. Do you have any tips for Roy Nichols tone, like the Live from Muskogee album? Yeah. One is, don't use anything really lighter than the 10 gauge. Use the back pickup and then roll the tone back. So kind of dial in a somewhat bright tone on the amp, but then roll the tone back, and that's kind of the sound. It just kind of, I don't know what it is, but it's like you set kind of a brighter sound with the amp, and then you roll it back with the tone control on the Telly, and that gets you more of that sound. And then he used just a Fender medium gauge pick, and he used his fingers some, but the others is just his hands and just his musicality. I mean, it's hard to copy somebody. Let's see, where are we? Yeah, people talking about some Gibsonettes, Danny Gatton. Oh man, I've had a bunch of. Let's see. Have you tried Eminence Cannabis Rex in your blackface? No, I have not. I'm sure that would be a great speaker. Right now, I'm still using a JBL D120F for now, but I'm still kind of in a long honeymoon phase, so I'm not going to start preaching the gospel of the JBL. Though I've done an episode on that, and some guys have picked them up. Music-related question. Just wondering if you ever shedded any Western swing players. I did one on Junior Bernard, and the reason being is because he's my favorite Western swing player. Oh, Plexico said, had to match Jason for coinage. Well, thank you so much, Plexico. Support content producers. Zach produces great content. Thank you. All right. Cole McNulty. Hope you're well. I've discovered Danny Gatton. I've done 88 Elmira Street. Where do you suggest to go next? Well, the album after that, Cruisin' Deuces, is not quite as good. The one you ought to get is the one, It's with Joey DeFrancesco. It's he and a B3 player. That album's really good. And then you know, you can go back and get like Unfinished Business. It's worth listening to the Humbler album, which is the one where it's a live album with him playing with Robert Gordon. And that's kind of the famous album that you know, yeah, it was a famous bootleg, but now it's available that you can find at different spots. Yeah, you ought to get those. Jason Cornelius says, thanks, Zach, my pleasure. Let's see, I can't remember. Have you gone down the potentiometer rabbit hole? Oh, golly. I have some. You know, I found that the old pots in my Esquire have a certain sound, and I don't know what it is, but if you take those out, it doesn't sound the same. And that's kind of it starts to sound like voodoo or something, but that's, you know, part of the sound of that guitar are the pots, not just the pickups, but it's the pots, it's the cap, it's everything. So yeah, it's a little mind-blowing. That's not a rabbit hole I wanted to go down. I wanted to just be like, well, it's the pickups and the wood and the string and the player and everything, but then it's like when you start getting into the whole potentiometer thing, it gets wacky, but unfortunately it's true. Got some thumbs up. Colin Farnsworth says, the Brown Box, how would you describe a better tone? Any chance of a demo? Well, I did in the episode that I did last year, there's a demo of it, and you can hear it as I go between different voltages on my Vox amp. So I'd recommend, yeah, there's a past episode I did, just look at Ask Zach and Brown Box, and that episode will come up. I'm sure this one will come up too. Let's see. Very important, VIP pots, or yeah. Okay, so that's a brand, VIP pots. I'll have to check those out. Zach, the Brad Paisley Telly, the neck pickup is a twisted Telly, but the bridge pickup they have no information on. Do you happen to know anything about it? Do you think La Brea's would be a good upgrade? Oh, I don't know what they... I know the pickups sound good in both of the Fender Mexico Brad Paisley models. I think both the twisted neck and the bridge sound great right off the bat. It's one of those great budget-friendly guitars that Fender makes, and you know, it's cool to be associated with my friend and former employer. I don't know the specifics on that. The La Brea pickups, they don't sound like that. The La Brea pickups sound like a late 60s Telecaster. So those are to mimic the sound of a 68 Paisley, of original pickups, specifically the bridge pickup. So, and the neck pickup is kind of your, you know, typical less clear neck pickup. And that's, you know, Brad doesn't use the neck pickup a whole lot, and so that's not a real huge concern of him. And that's why he's kind of gone with that secret agent thing in some of his other guitars. But I liked the La Brea bridge pickup a lot. The neck pickup was like a, you know, kind of standard vintage neck pickup. Oh, thank you, Sean. Sean is Cubs fan 1. Thank you. Says, greetings from Chicago. Have you ever played an offset Telly? I played an made in Japan Fender offset Telly made of Carena with P90s, and it was awesome. I bet it was. I have played offset, you know, Tellys before. I thought they were really cool. I do prefer the regular Telecaster body, but the offsets are really cool. And of course, you know, you get more mass with the body, and it's a cool sound. And of course, P90s are a lot of fun. And so that way you kind of get away from the aesthetic of a Telly, but still have some of the good things like the bridge and the neck and such things. Let's see. I feel like I've missed something here. Any affiliation with Ask Jeeves? No. Do you have a recommendation on 5-watt tube amps? You know, the Vibrachamp Reverb that Fender makes is a cool little 5-watt amp. You know, you check out some champs and other things like that. There's a lot of guys making single-ended 5-watt amps. The best thing to do is just play as many of them as you can. Grant Firstat, who's been a guy that's been, part of the channel for a long time, and I really appreciate you, Grant. Back in Perth and dealing with jet lag after a month in Europe. So happy to find you chatting at 4:30 a.m. our time. Well, thank you, Grant, and I'm glad you're recovering. Hi, Zach. Any thoughts on P2P amplifiers? I don't know what those are. I'm sure that's some shortening that I don't know, but maybe clue me in. DB Lewis says, got a TrueFire two-face fuzz, run it through Crank Deluxe and ride the volume pot on the guitar. That's a great thing. I mean, it's a classic rig, running a Telecaster through a fuzz and into a blackface amp, and you leave the fuzz on and you just kind of roll back the volume control some so it cleans up, and you kind of have this automatic, great variation in tone right there. That's a cool setup. Let's see. Chris Quinn says, looks like old Central Ave pots, meaning the VIP ones. Very nice. Well, that's good to know. Mucky Trail said upgraded to Brea pickups. Yeah, they do. And yeah, I especially like the bridge pickup. I have not tried any Curtis Novak pickups yet. Let's see. Corinna is the wood used in the first Flying V and Explorer guitars. Exactly, yeah. And that produces a different tone. And I've played some builders that I know have made some, Les Paul Juniors and stuff that had Corinna. And of course I've played John Jorgensen had a signature model Telly that had a Corinna body. And it was a really cool sound. So it was kind of somewhere in between mahogany and ash. Let's see. Picked up a Shure Bella that sounds great as a pedal platform amp with my Ash Malonson Telly. What might you suggest for a small combo with a touch sensitive dirty sound or gain channel? Oh, I am not the best guy for an amp with a gain channel, because my experience would be like the old Boogie 50 caliber series, like from the 80s. A friend of mine used to use one of those, and I used to borrow that amp, and I used to use that some. So I'm sorry that I don't have more experience with that. I usually, want the amp to be clean and then use pedals to get drive on top of that. At most, I would try to get maybe just a touch of dirt, but I don't try to get really a lead sound from the amp on its own. Let's see. Oh, point to point. Yeah, there's of current point to point amps. I'm not familiar with all of them. One of the best ones is the Brown Princeton, the Chris Stapleton one. That's a really, really cool amp. I also have the point to point Princeton Reverb, which is cool too. But the Stapleton one is just, that's a really great amp. And right now my buddy Austin has it, and he's been gigging with it. Mike Skaggs makes point-to-point amps. Great guy. Yeah, I've heard, Mike's a player here in town, and he's worked with Tom Bukovac, and he even, I think, makes I think it's an Uncle Larry signature model Tweed amp. So that'd probably be something cool to look at. Tone King Gremlin is 5 watts. That's a great company. That'd be something very much worth checking out. Thoughts on EQ pedals? I know some guitarists swear by them for live situations. I use them depending on the gig, and I tend to, I have 2 of them. They're both Boss ones. One of them has been modified by XTS to be more mid-range. It's called mid-range mod, and that one's great for guitars. And so I use that a lot on guitar pedal boards. I have a regular one that's unmodified that I use with my mandolin when I'm going to run it through an amp or direct, or when I'm using my 6-string bass, like the Bass 6 or the Dan Electro baritone. You have to have that because unfortunately the modified one doesn't have the low frequencies. So yes, I don't use them all the time on gigs, but I do use them frequently. Plexico, how is the music scene where you live? Do new residents have a chance to break into the scene? Absolutely. There are so many bands. I mean, at this point, I would say Nashville is probably the live music capital of the world. I know Austin has claimed that at different times, but there are so many bands playing downtown Nashville. And if you're a good player and you have a good attitude and you show up on time, you're going to work. And so, yeah, there's plenty of work downtown if you're willing to, not get fouled up and show up on time. Yeah, there's tons of work. Let's see. Have you ever played a Telly through a Supro amulet? No, I have not. Has a built-in attenuator switch. Yeah. The only amp I've had with the attenuator is the blonde ToneMaster Deluxe, which I've really enjoyed because that way I can just set the Deluxe, the volume to 5, and then I can go on the back of the amp and just set that. So I would think that, a tube one would be, very cool, if not cooler. So, though I do love the ToneMaster. Let's see. Have the Fender Brad Paisley Road Worn and Telly with the liver. Okay, yeah, the La Brea pickups are not the same pickups that are in the Fender guitars. Those are different designs. They're not designed to sound the same. The La Brea pickups are like late 60s Telecaster pickups like you would see in an original Paisley Telly. That was the whole point of that pickup. And it does great. It's staggered, pole pieces and such. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, again, I haven't had my hands on one of the road worn Brad Paisley Fender models. I believe that they're flat pole, so like a broadcaster or early Telecaster, and it's going for a different sound. They're both great sounds, but it's just different, and then it's just finding out which one you like. If you like that twangy, more dynamic sound, then get the La Brea. If you want more of the compressed, kind of a little more flat as far as EQ is, then the flat pole tends to be better. Nice to know you rely on pedals for gain. Yeah, I don't really use dirty Dr. Z point to point. Yeah, man, I owned a lot of Dr. Z amps back in the day, especially the Carmen Ghia. The Carmen Ghia is a killer amp, especially if you can find one of the Carmen Ghia heads. Many times you can get those for under $1,000. And they're fantastic, and they are, they can go all sorts of different directions depending on what kind of speaker you put them with. Of course, you can get really voxy with a blue, or just depending on which direction you want to go. Eric Johnson, Virginia uses sassafras body. Ever run across a Telly using that wood? Not yet. I mean, that was the first time I really heard of it. I mean, I'd heard that off and on Leo would use, basically Leo would use whatever was around. Now, this is what I was told by a former Fender employee. He told me that the whole reason they started using alder in 1955, on Strats, 56, the reason they went to that was because they were able to get a bunch of alder cheap, and they found that, of course, it didn't have to be grain filled. And when he said cheap, he said it was like almost free, and they just had to go pick it up. And so I would, why wouldn't he use whatever wood that he could get that would be acceptable as a, that wouldn't fall apart and sounded decent. So I think we put way too much crazy thought, and I know I'm guilty of it also, into what kind of wood. But yeah, there was, of course, there's famously mahogany Strats from, I can't remember if it's 63 or 64, where there are, Strats that had mahogany bodies, and a few Tellys. No, but I have not played a sassafras bodied Telly. Have you tried Grammatico amps? No, but the chap lives here in town, and of course, Red Volkart, uses his stuff, and so I would assume it's great. I just haven't ever had a chance to play through one. Let's see, Russell M. Wow, thanks to a snow day here in Denver, I got to see Zach live. Thanks for the great work, Zach. Well, thank you, Russell M. Cheers, Zach, from Minty Green. I hope that's a Minty Green pick guard. Is a Masturtion similar to a Noble's ODR1? Not at all. They are two, flavors of overdrive. The Masturtion is a tube screamer with, and I know that gets kind of an overused phrase, but the Masturtion truly is. It is a Ibanez pedal, and I spoke with the designer of it. It is a tube screamer with a MOSFET, I believe it's the buffer, and then it has a 3-band EQ from like a Fender amp. It's passive, and it just created a different sound. So it's a less mid-rangey tube screamer with better EQ controls. And it still has kind of that kind of ringy, kind of somewhat tube screamer thing, but less mid-range, and it has a little better feel to it. I know that's kind of a funny thing to say, but you know, when you play through pedals, it has a feel to it. The ODR1, to me, it doesn't sound anything like your amp did before. I know guys will turn it down low, but to me, the ODR1 is really like complete channel switching. And I like it though. It has a, I have an original green one here. You can see the box back there, and I use it off and on. It has a much fatter sound to it. The strings sound like they're bigger. So when you turn that on, even like the high E string. So if you want like really fat single note lines, the ODR1 is probably the better thing. If you want to be able to play clusters of notes and they distort and still sound good together, I like the Masturtion better. So, and that's kind of how I decide which one to use on my board. And I usually don't put both of them. I'll just use one or the other. So it depends on, do I need to have a really fat singing single note lines, or do I need to have a normal kind of all-purpose overdrive? So I end up using the Masturtion a lot more than the Nobles. All right, it's been a while on that. Sassafras got to be better than poplar. You ever try to burn poplar? No, I have never tried to burn poplar. I'm lucky. Denver, coming your way in August. All right, coming to Nashville. Well, give me a heads up. Hopefully, maybe I'll be playing somewhere. Chris Quinn is the Masturtion also uses a CA3260 chip, which might be a MOSFET chip. I believe it is a MOSFET chip. Who's in your interview sites for 2023, Zach? I don't like to talk about this too much because, I had an interview where there was a snafu, and we're trying to kind of bring things around, but I don't like to talk about interviews before they happen. So I don't have one in the hopper right now. So there's not one that we're editing right now. I need to film another one, and I don't like to talk about those things until they happen, because I'm not superstitious, but I just hate to talk about something and then something happens and it doesn't come to fruition. But thank you for the question, Grant. Don Knotts, thoughts on the Kunief pickup? The new one that Fender makes is really cool. I think they're the first real reproduction of that. So the one that they put on their Vintage 2 series, it's a really cool pickup. It has that attack, and so I would whether you want to get that guitar or if you just want to get those pickups, but that's the first real reproduction of the original pickups that actually have real Kunief. I mean, other guys have gone after the sound but using different ingredients, and there's nothing wrong with those. Like the Lawler pickups that are their version of the Fender humbucker is really nice too. Oh, let's see. The ODR one with the bass cut switch is a big game changer. Yes, it is. That's a really wonderful thing, because that's the problem with the ODR one, is they vary a lot. If you get like 6 vintage ones, they'll all sound different, but a lot of them have a problem with too much low end. Let's see. Thoughts on blues driver on a blonde tone master? Yeah, worked great. I've done it before. I have a blues driver, an old Keeley mod, and whether the mod's on or not, it works very well in front of the blonde tone master. Just picked up my first vintage amp, a mid-70s Fender Bassman. Any tips or tricks for taking care of older amps? Take it to a tech and make sure it's had the electrolytic caps changed out and that it just has a good clean bill of health. And if some of the tubes need to be replaced, and then just enjoy it, use it, and probably not a bad idea to look at a brown box. Bill Kirchen in the Tone Lounge. Oh boy, if there's a way. I've been talking to Bill. He's one of the people I've been talking to. Since you said his name, I'll say that I've been talking to him, and it's just about getting him to Nashville because we don't have the budget to fly out to. Is he in Virginia? Yeah, I believe so. But yeah, we're hoping to get him to Nashville so that we can film something. I left out John Tropia and David Spinozzi. Yeah, those guys are fantastic. David Spinozzi, of course, a famous, Telly player and user, and he was another one of the guys that put a humbucker in the neck position. Chris Quinn, thank you so much. Putting some, we've had a number of you folks putting some nice, change in the, not just change, putting some nice, presidents in the tip jar. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you, Chris. Yeah, you and the Tom Bukovac show. What can be done without swear words? I love the balance. You've taught me so much. Yeah, Tom is fantastic. Tom, is, people asked me for years to interview him, and I said, well, now that he has a channel, all you need to do is watch it, and you can learn everything you ever want to know about Tom Bukovac. And he, it's like there was an episode a couple days ago where he was at Vince Gill's house, and they're talking to Vince and showing a bunch of vintage guitars. It's ridiculous. He's great. Are the Shack Shakers still around? Oh, I'm not sure. Any good current ODR1 replacement pedals that sound like the old one? Yeah, the ODR Mini sounds really good from Nobles. I mean, it's a good sound. There's a lot of copies out there, but really, the Mini sounds great and inexpensive, and it doesn't take up a lot of space. And you're supporting. If you want to go whole hog, Nordland, Nordland. That is from the guy that designed the Nobles originally. It has a lot more knobs to it. It's a lot more controllable. And my buddy Austin, who I played last week with, was using one, and it sounded fantastic. So that would be kind of like, if you want to spend under $100, get the Mini Nobles ODR1. If you want to, go whole hog, get the Nordland ODR. I think it's ODRC. You can check out Nordland. All right, what would be the benefit of using a Silverface amp with a brown box? It's the consistency. It's one, the amp still doesn't want to see like 126 volts. So by bringing it down and just being able to have consistency of being able to say, even if you want to put it at 120, or 117, or, but it's just when you go different places and the voltage coming out of the wall is everything from 118, to 126, 127, that really makes your amp sound different, no matter what. And that's the advantage of a brown box. Will Barton, of course, gave a heart with Bill Kirchen. Chris Quinn says, you deserve the best. Thank you. Put a grounded plug on your vintage amp. That's very true. One from the 70s should be grounded. By 72, 73, they were all grounded from the factory, I believe. Talk about leaving the bridge pickup out of the tone circuit. Actually, it's the reverse. I talk about leaving the neck pickup out. So I like to have the tone control on the bridge pickup. And so there's a wiring schematic on my website at askzach.com. You can look under articles. But yes, I'm a big fan of leaving the neck pickup because it makes it brighter and gives it more output. And then you can just set the amp to the neck pickup, and then you can go to the back pickup and you can just dark it as needed. Sean McGee, thank you so much. Taco, I ended up getting a special 130 because of your video. Thank you. I've got mine's right here. I'm looking at it, and it's great. My daughter has been using it to plug a microphone in and just sing through it, and so she enjoys practicing her singing by on a microphone. She has a 58 here with a stand and everything, and we plug it into there until I guess at some point I'll have to pick up a little PA system. Oh, Chris Quinn says, my comment was referring to Tom using swear words. Great, and you don't. Also great. Yeah, I I think, let people be who they are. And it's like, that's one of the great things about YouTube. And I was glad that somebody told me, he said, you can just be yourself. You don't have to hype yourself up. So I don't have to start dropping the F-bomb or something like that to be cool. I can just be who I am naturally. And just like Tom has even said in episodes that sometimes he won't appear places because he doesn't feel the freedom to be himself. And that's fine too. So people can be who they are. Let's see. Recently got an Iridium and loaded it with an open back vintage 30. Sounds amazing. Thanks for the advice. Yes, I just used that 2 weeks ago playing at Old Red here in Nashville. Played 8 to midnight and used the Iridium with that exact same, with an open back vintage 30 that I bought the IR from online. I think it was from Tone Hammer or something like that. Yeah. Let's see. Monty D says, gotcha, thank you. Any suggestions on a good fuzz pedal? I think it all depends on how much money you want to spend. I mean, the germanium ones have just gotten crazy expensive. And there's a lot of fakes out there of the old ones. And I really like, I have a Analog Man Sunface, and it's really good. It does a good job. I wish I had one with the NK275 with the white dot. That would be my ideal, but those pedals go for $1,000, so I don't have one. Let's see. Dustin, there's a player local to me refuses to put a 3-prong cord on his original 65 Deluxe. Does the shock test against his microphones to get the ground switch right. Oh my goodness. See, I know people that have really gotten hurt from that. The guy really should put a 3-pronger on there. So anyway, let's see. I think I'm missing some stuff here. Let's go back. Chris Quinn, do you have trouble with the bass on the ODR1? Tom doesn't understand why people have that problem. Yeah, on my old one, I don't. But I've played through some of the copies and they do, and I don't know what the deal is. Through the old ODR ones, the original ones, even the silver ones, I didn't have any problem with the bass. But some of the later versions, and I don't know if people are using too nice of parts. I mean, it could be that the old ODR ones had just the really cheapest garbage, not garbage, but just really cheap parts in it. And they didn't let that much bass through. And maybe the newer ones are using too nice of stuff. Maybe it's like, you need to use the cheap flour to make the cheap cornmeal to make the corn dog better. I don't know. So, but yeah, that's the best I can answer, Chris. I haven't had the problem with my old ones, but newer circuits that are copying the ODR1 I have, and that's when you really need to have a bass cut. I like my XTS Imperial, Grant says. Not too many knobs. That's a good suggestion for XTS is a fantastic company. They're friends. Let's see. King Tone Duelist. Oh, wow. Michael Davis, $10. Thank you so much. Thank you. Man, we've had a lot of comments. I'm trying not to miss anything here, guys. Let's see. DB Lewis says, damn it, Zach, don't be coy. I wasn't trying to be coy, but I'm sorry if I was. You checked everything off my dream list for guests. I'd kind of like to see you out in the field more, especially with JD or Austin. Yeah, I'm trying to get out and play more. I think playing with Austin last week, played 5 nights in Vegas, and there was actually some guys that came out, that watched the show, and so it was a lot of fun to hang out with a couple of you guys. And yeah, and I've played here in Nashville, played week before last with Austin, and so yeah, I'm trying to be more. Yeah, because I really enjoy playing, and I don't know why I sometimes would just I can get so busy doing this, because I work for True Tone, and then I do Ask Zach, and and then I try to play, and I try to be a dad and a husband and all, and try to be a friend and try to hang, and so it's a lot of stuff. So, but I'm trying to really take the time to play more because I really enjoy it, and it's so much fun, and it's in my heart. So. All right. Again, thank you, Michael Davis. Let's see. Current run ODR1 with bass cut is nice. Good to know. That's from Olfa Cuts. R. Mart says, how do you go about determining what voltage number your amp like? Was it all by ear? I have a brown box and haven't yet started to use on a 65 vintage Deluxe reverb. Okay, so originally I just used by sound, but then I actually found that but then I took the amp to a tech, and he was using the brown box with the amp as he was testing things, and he said that the filaments on the tubes wanted to see a little bit higher than what I was doing, and it didn't really change the sound that much, but actually kind of beefed it up just a little bit without changing things drastically. And so for blackface amps, I like 117. And for tweed amps, I like 113. And that's kind of what I've been going with. And the Vox AC10, the vintage one that I have from 1964, I've still been kind of using in the 112 range. So, and that's, so it's kind of a combination of using my ears and also talking with someone that's knowledgeable, that knows what the heater filaments on the tubes want to see, because if you under voltage them, the amp's not going to work right. All right. Producer Man says the ODR minis don't have the bass problem. That's good. Chris Mock, looking at getting the Chris Stapleton Princeton and thinking I will miss reverb. Curious if you have thoughts, Rex, on a great spring reverb pedal. Yes, I absolutely do, Chris. I love the Stapleton amp, and I love the MXR reverb pedal, the little gray one. I think it's the M300. It has an amazing sounding spring reverb. It kills, and I know a lot of you are going to hate me for saying this, but it completely kills the Strymon spring reverb. You know, what is that one? The one that's the tremolo and reverb. Its spring is okay. To me, you can get a much better reverb and tremolo by just buying the MXR reverb pedal and then getting a Boss tremolo. To me, that's a much better sounding setup. And again, I like Strymon stuff. I use the Iridium, and I don't have any problem with them. That's just me as far as what I like tone-wise. Opinions on a good 12 for a brown Princeton. Does it done anything with this? Yeah. I've used a bunch of different speakers, and I really liked the Celestian Blue in it a lot, but then I ended up going back to the original stock speaker. My buddy Austin is borrowing the amp, and he has an EVM 12L, a 300 watt speaker in there, and he's loving it. He turns the amp to 10 and then controls it completely with his Les Paul. So he tends to use a lot of, I mean, he plays Telecaster also, but he plays a lot of, you know, either a Les Paul or a historic Les Paul or historic 335. And those are both really good guitars that he runs through there. Corey Lawless, 20 bucks. Man, thank you so much. Y'all have been very generous today, and I really appreciate it. That's very, very, very kind of y'all. SRV3 Fender, what do you think about Guthrie's East Nashville Guitar Club? Man, I think that's cool. Yeah, I think, you know, Guthrie is such a great player, and you know, and a lot of those guys are in that club. I mean, those are some really good guys, and they're having these jam things. And seeing again, that's, you know, I'm the one that's just so bad about staying home, and it takes Austin or these other guys to say, hey, will you come play a gig, to get me to leave my house. So yes, Bob RG said the Strymon Flint. The Strymon Flint's a good pedal, but I think MXR reverb pedal and a Boss tremolo is better, in my opinion, because I just want a good spring sound, and the MXR to me does a better job. The Flint has the advantage of being a smaller form factor and yada, 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 but I'll take the Boss and the MXR over it any day. Have you tried the Keeley Hydra? No, I have not, Chris. Nothing like a combo with a spring. You're absolutely right. It's just, you know, bringing the Stapleton plus a you know, an outboard reverb tank is kind of it is a little bit of a pain, but you are right, and I won't be coy about that. Any updates on the Fender Blonde Tone Master? I played one and it seemed too direct and immediate. I don't know. Thoughts? Dylan, I feel like on the amp you really need to turn the volume up to 5, and then you turn the attenuation down on the back. And to me, that's where the sweet spot is you turn, you know, the treble around 4, the bass around 5, and you turn the volume up to 5. And then you get on the back and you just set the attenuation to whatever level you need in that room. And to me, that's when it really kind of, wakes up and yeah, it is more touch sensitive and more fun to play through. Producer Man says, I had a twin with 2 EVMs in it. Sounded amazing, but weighed 300 pounds. Yeah, that's the problem. But nothing sounds like those big cast frame speakers. No Celestion will ever sound like an EVM, and no EVM will ever sound like a Celestion. But those EVs have such a strong, forceful sound. They really cut through the mix well without being harsh. They're good speakers, and they're still used for good reason. And they were kind of the standard, through the 80s. I mean, Knopfler and Clapton and Stevie Ray Vaughan, all of those guys were using EVs throughout the 80s and into the 90s. Let's see, Guitar Heaven. I wonder if you're talking about the store that used to be here in Nashville. I loved that shop. WC Ray, if you would go to a Nashville 3 pickup setup, what middle pickup would you add? Well, I'm a fan of the old Glazer Telly 3 pickup Nashville Tellys. I mean, he kind of launched that thing, and he always used a Seymour Duncan hot Strat stack, top coil only, and that's what he put in Ricky Skaggs' guitar, Steve Warner, Brent Mason, Reggie Young, on and on. All the Nashville guys got that one, so I highly recommend that one. And that's what I have in my Nashville Telly. Is I have a Telly that has a 3rd pickup, and it's that hot Strat stack. And you can find used ones, for cheap, or you can get a new one for $100 or whatever. And you just wire it where it's the top coil, because it's a humbucking pickup. It's a blade pickup, and you just want the top coil, not the bottom. All right, let's see. You've probably stated it, but what's the best compression pedal? Man, there are a lot of good compressor pedals out there. It's not like the old days where there was just the Dynacomp and maybe the Boss CS2, CS3, and all those are good pedals. My favorite simple compressor pedal is the Mirage compressor, and it's 2 knobs. It has an LED that shows you when the unit's on, and then it has another LED that kind of shows you when you're hitting the compressor. And I used one all last week, and so did Austin. We were both using the same compressor. In fact, he's borrowing one of mine. I like the pedal so much I have 2 of them. So I have my main one and then the backup that I'm letting Austin borrow. And it's the best 2-knob compressor. You might have some compressor that has 5 knobs on it that has a blend and all this other stuff, which is really cool. But to have a 2-knob compressor that really is easy to use and sounds great, I like that, especially for playing live. Now, if you want one in the studio with the blend, that's great. Let's see. Dylan says, treble 4, bass 5, volume 5, attenuated down. Got it. Thanks. Yep. Those are, if there's any secret settings, that's all I know. Sean McGee says Cali 76, hands down. That is a fantastic compressor. It is, but I personally, yes, and I can understand why the people love the Cali 76. Philosopher's Tone Pigtronics. That's a great one too. So, all right. Well, we've gone on for a little over an hour now, so I'm probably gonna sign off. Just wanted to thank old AmpRX Brown Box again for sending me the new iteration of it. And also, again, just so you know, if you're thinking about ordering one, you can use the discount code AskZac, no space, so just ASKZAC. That'll give you $20 off if you were thinking about buying one online from their website. So, let's see. Thoughts on nitro finish over polyester on new guitars? It just depends on how thick it is. So, I mean, to me, I've played plenty of poly guitars that were fantastic. So it just depends on how thick it is and if it is, deadening things somewhat. Greg Koch talked about the Allman Brothers and Hendrix using JBLs with crank Marshalls. I knew the Allmans and Van Hees, but not Hendrix. Yeah. Yeah, those higher wattage speakers, the JBLs in the 60s and 70s and the EVs and the Altecs really were used quite a bit by big name players because they were less likely to blow, and no one wanted to be changing speakers a bunch. Since you work for True Tone, what is filtering in power supplies to reduce? Yes, it's to reduce the amount of, you know, it's to reduce noise. It's to reduce, the words are escaping me right now. It's like AC flutter. But that's not the right word. And especially with digital things, when you have a digital power supply and digital pedals, there has to be filtering to keep that interaction from creating noise. And so that's what True Tone does with their power supplies. All right, I need to go. I got kids coming home from school, and I got to take care of them. Got to go be a dad. So really appreciate y'all coming out. And John McCauley, thank you. And you're not late. Hello from Alberta, Canada. All right. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next time. And watch, next week will be my episode on my trip to Vegas, and it's a lot of fun. I even talk about using this thing a little bit. So, all right. Cheers. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone that hit the tip jar. Y'all were very generous and very kind, and it is greatly appreciated. All right. See you next week.